Brain.
So, can you see the pointer? Okay. So, being pointed right now is the normal brain tissue. There is no problem with the tissues of the brain in this slide. Problem is present in the meninges. Okay? So, what are the abnormalities that you can identify in the pointed area?
Yung meningeal layer po.
Okay, the meningeal tissues are not identifiable anymore. What else? Very good.
Infiltrates of
There are infiltrates of those cells which are not normally present in the meninges. Let's zoom in to higher magnification.
Liquefactive.
Okay. So we are able to see liquefactive necrosis characterized by the presence of neutrophils. Again, when you see neutrophils that closely spaced with each other, that numerous, you are looking at the microscopic appearance of pus. Especially that you are not anymore able to see the histology of the meninges. So this is acute meningitis. So what abnormality can you identify for the blood vessels that can be seen in this field? Okay, they are dilated. They are dilated. If we see numerous red blood cells filling the dilated vessels, then the condition will be called congestion. So name the abnormality pointed. Edema. Very good. So this is pus, characterized by the presence of neutrophils, edema fluid, and the disappearance of the tissues of this, the components of these tissues, because of liquefactive necrosis as caused by the neutrophils. When they are phagocytosing, it's mentioned in the lecture, there will be leakage of the contents of the lysosomes already. So, acute meningitis. By the way, do you already have your laboratory manual? Okay. Kindly open your manual when we are discussing. Next slide is number 5. So, this is diagnosed as acute fibrinous pericarditis. Again, there are areas of our body that will produce a specific pattern of inflammation. So for the surfaces of our cavities, most of the time, a fibrinous type of inflammation will develop. So this slide is diagnosed as acute fibrinous pericarditis. Now there is no cardiac tissue present in this slide. So this should be the fibrous to adipose connective tissue components of the pericardium. Now, this is how acute fibrinous inflammation will look like. Again, you can only come up with a diagnosis of an acute inflammation if you will be able to see neutrophils infiltrating the tissues of an organ. So those are the neutrophils. They are easily identified because of their characteristic polymorphonuclear appearance. Again, they are supposed to be present in the blood only. So here, we are looking at the neutrophils infiltrating the connective tissues. And then, fibrinous deposits are very easy to identify under the microscope. Can you see the pointer? Just memorize that appearance of fibrin deposits. Plain pink with no particular pattern at all. So, you just need to memorize it. Okay? So in this field, we're seeing at the lower portion the dense irregular connective tissue, and then above it are the infiltrates of the neutrophils accompanied by pink deposits of fibrin materials. Acute fibrinous pericarditis. Again, there is increased vascular permeability in acute inflammation. So there are conditions where there will be marked increase in vascular permeability that will develop. So that the blood vessels will not only allow escape of the neutrophils, antibodies, and complement proteins, that increased permeability will also allow the escape of fibrinogen, which will become activated in tissues to become fibrin. I just memorized that at once. Next is the slide number 58. This is diagnosed as acute fibrinous pleuritis. Again, an inflammation occurring at the surface of an organ. So a while ago, surface of the pericardium, this time the surface of the pleura. So look at this pink materials. Okay? They are the fibrinous deposits. Again, coming from marked increase in vascular permeability. Now, in this portion of the field, to your right, this actually a lung tissue. Okay? Lung tissue. Let us begin first with the study of the tissues of the lungs. You have seen the histology of the lungs already. So, you will not be able to appreciate anymore. It will be very difficult to identify this organ as the lung because of increased cellularity. Okay, there is increased cellularity. Let us zoom in to higher magnification. Kindly follow the pointer. I am now tracing the wall of an alveolus. Okay, so this is another alveolus. Inside the lumen of the alveoli are neutrophils, indicating that there is an inflammation inside the alveolar spaces. You are looking at the microscopic appearance of pneumonia, particularly lobar pneumonia. There is an infection in the alveoli of the lungs causing the recruitment of the neutrophils inside the alveolar spaces. Again, it will be difficult to identify the lung tissue because much of the tissues of the lungs have been liquefied already by the neutrophils. And then, unfortunately for this individual, the inflammation that has developed first in the lungs has extended into the pleura, covering this lung, so that you will be able to see the surface of the pleura, which is not anymore smooth because fibrin has become deposited. There is edema already in the pointed clear portions. And then when you shift to high power magnification, so you will clearly see the neutrophils among the deposits of fibrin materials in the pleural tissues. So acute fibrinous pleuritis. Next slide is number 7A. This is diagnosed as acute salpingitis or acute inflammation of the salpinx, which is more commonly called the fallopian tube. Now, remember the lumen of the fallopian tube. The lumen of the fallopian tube is not round in shape. If you will remember your histology, the mucosa produces numerous finger-like projections. So numerous finger-like projections into the lumen. This is one papillary projection. This is another papillary projection. This is another papillary projection. Can you still remember the type of epithelium that is lining the mucosa of the fallopian tube? Simple, ciliated, columnar epithelium. Let us look for the remnant of that epithelium. By the way, before we proceed with identification of the remnant of the normal, simple ciliated columnar epithelium, how do you call this loose connective tissue immediately underneath the epithelium? Lamina propria. You have seen lamina propria already in your first year. It is composed of loose connective tissue. That is why the lamina propria should appear clean. But look at the lamina propria of this mucosa. There are many dots present. And then when you shift to higher magnification, you will be able to see that the dots are actually composed of neutrophils. Okay? So there is acute inflammation that has developed in the mucosa of this fallopian tube, and because of the neutrophils performing phagocytosis. Okay? So there will be leakage of the contents of their lysosomes, causing the destruction of not only the lamina propria, but also the epithelium, covering the lamina propria. That is why, okay, majority of the surfaces of the mucosa are not anymore displaying the usual simple ciliated columnar epithelium. That epithelium has been liquefied already by the contents of the lysosome of the neutrophils. Can you see the pointer? You will be able to see in the pointed area, let us zoom to higher magnification. Okay, that was the area pointed a while ago. Simple columnar epithelium with cilia projecting at the surface of the epithelium. That's a remnant of the normal epithelium of the fallopian tube. So for the medical technologists here, what is the most common cause of infection of the fallopian tube? It will start in the cervix. That is sexually transmitted
infection.
Neisseria gonorrhea. So it will begin in the cervix and then it will progress as an ascending type of infection. So from the cervix to the uterus until eventually the salpinges will become infected. Okay, so aside from the necrotic epithelial cells, the detached necrotic epithelial cells are actually accompanied by neutrophils. And this again, the microscopic appearance of pus. This will be dripping towards the endometrial cavity of the uterus, which will also eventually go out to the cervix. Now, so Neisseria gonorrhea, what is an expected complication of this? There is extensive tissue damage. You have studied chronic inflammation already. So aside from regeneration, what is the more prominent form of repair? It is scarring. Okay? Majority of patients who had suppurative salpingitis before develop repeated ectopic pregnancies. Okay? So, remember the function of the ciliated columnar epithelium. So the cilia will help propel not only the the ovum of the fertilized ovum. Remember, fertilization, majority of fertilization, 90% of fertilization occurs in the fallopian tube. Next, slide number 82. So this is brain abscess. Again, what is the definition of an abscess?
Localized,
Area of work. Area of work.
Localized collection of
pus.
pus. So this area being indicated by the pointer. Can you see the pointer? Okay. Is the abscess in the brain. Let us zoom in first to the abscess. Look at the shape of the nuclei of the cells that are present in that field. Segmented. All of them are neutrophils. Can you identify a regular brain tissue on that field?
No.
No, because the tissues of the brain have been liquefied already by those cells. So let us check the other fields of this slide. Okay, so localized collection of pus. And then, in this portion of the slide, okay, in this portion of the slide, we will be able to see the regular brain tissue. Name the cell pointed.
Pyramidal.
Pyramidal cell. This is actually the neuron or the brain cell. So pyramidal cells or the neurons accompanied by smaller cells, which are the glial cells or the neuroglial cells. Normal histology, normal cellular components of the brain, normal brain tissue. And then, in this portion of the brain, an abscess has developed. A marked degree of cellularity will be seen in this area because there is a localized collection of pus. What type of necrosis is present?
Liquefactive.
Next slide, 102.
What you think?
Okay, can you still remember this organ? It's the mucosa that is composed of an epithelium and lamina propria. So that is the thin bundle of smooth muscles that is separating the mucosa above from the submucosa below. Can you still remember the name of muscularis mucosae? And then look at the configuration of the glands. Tubular branching. So branched tubular glands are present in the mucosa of what organ? Stomach. Good. So we are now looking at the mucosa and the submucosa of the stomach. So intact mucosa. And then suddenly, in this field, there is now this appearance of the mucosa. So showing us a defect that is an excavation. Excavation of the mucosa and the submucosa layers. So what will be the diagnosis here? What?
Ulcer.
Ulcer. If you will examine this base of the ulcer and then the periphery, the margins of the ulcer, you will be able to see the characteristic infiltrates of acute inflammation. Okay? Numerous neutrophils. Okay? at the base and at the margins of the ulcer. And then, at the base also, we will be able to see numerous macrophages. And because there is now an admixture of polymorphonuclear and mononuclear cells, what type of inflammation is now present? Both. Acute and chronic inflammation. I have discussed this morning. The other margin of the ulcer.
Ang mono kay chronic.
Okay? So, peptic ulcer disease does not heal at a short time. Remember, lifespan of the neutrophils is up to 48 hours only. So they will be replaced eventually by macrophages. But, as you shall learn in the diseases of the gastrointestinal tract, one of the causes for the development of peptic ulcer disease is hydrochloric acid, which is regularly produced by the parietal cells of the mucosa of the stomach. Every time there is release of hydrochloric acid, new form of injury will develop in the ulcer. That is why acute inflammation will always accompany chronic inflammation in peptic ulcer disease. So what infection is associated with this condition? Okay, H. pylori infection. Kindly remember that there are instructors who are fond of asking that question.
What's the question? What answer is
Okay, this organ of the gastrointestinal tract is very small. Small because we will be able to see the lumen, entire lumen of this organ, the cross-sectional appearance of its lumen in one slide. Appendix, very good.
No.
Okay, so what is the epithelium of the appendix? Columnar. How do you call that connective tissue immediately underneath the epithelium?
Lamina propria.
And surrounding the glands, lamina propria. That thin bundle of smooth muscle fibers.
Muscularis
So that
mucosae.
this layer is called submucosa. Now, remember the histology of the appendix. There are lymphoid follicles, which are normally present in the lamina propria. But in infections, these lymphoid follicles will become hyperplastic, so that they will be seen in the submucosa layer also. So external to the submucosa layer is what layer?
Muscularis externa.
Muscularis externa. And then the outermost layer is called
Serosa.
serosa. Pathognomonic sign of acute appendicitis under the microscope is the presence of neutrophils in the muscularis externa. So we need to check the muscularis externa of this appendix. Okay, so we will be able to see the neutrophils infiltrating the muscles of the appendix. Again, normally the neutrophils should be present in the blood vessels only, inside the blood vessels. Okay, there are other evidences of acute inflammation here. What is the status of that blood vessel point? Congested. Okay, so there is also edema in the pointed areas. So neutrophilic infiltration, and then, okay, inflammation has extended into the serosa layer already, external to the muscularis propria. Now, the main requirement to come up with the diagnosis of acute appendicitis is to see neutrophils infiltrating the muscles. Why? Remember, the appendix is attached to the cecum, anatomy. So, any infection in the ileum or in the large intestine may go down into the appendix via the influence of gravity. These infections will affect first the mucosa. Okay? And the lumen. So if the infection and inflammation is primary to the appendix, then the neutrophils must be seen in the muscularis externa layer. So in this stage of acute appendicitis, all the layers and all the tissues of the appendix can still be identified. Now, this is what happens when acute appendicitis is diagnosed late and operated at a later time. Okay, we can still see the lumen of this appendix. Can you still identify the mucosa? Okay. So we will not be able to see that the cells composing the mucosa, but we are still able to appreciate the architecture of the mucosa. So coagulative or liquefactive?
Coagulative.
Coagulative. And then, in the deeper layers, can you still see the muscles in the muscularis externa layer? No. Because replacing the muscles are now very numerous neutrophils. So what type of necrosis is seen in this field?
Liquefactive.
Liquefactive. We are now seeing a combination of liquefactive and coagulative necrosis. So that what special type of necrosis are we now seeing?
Gangrene.
Okay,
Gangrenous.
this is acute gangrenous appendicitis. Okay? So if this is left as it is inside the abdomen, there will be marked weakening of the wall of the appendix that will eventually develop. That is why all cases of acute appendicitis will require appendectomy or removal of the appendix, because all acute appendicitis cases will always have the possibility to become ruptured. Okay? When this inflammation of the appendix ruptures, it will cause widespread. It will cause the spread of the infection to the peritoneal cavity, producing acute peritonitis, which is a dangerous situation. Okay? The patient can develop sepsis. The patient can develop ileus. What is ileus? That is an unfair question. Ileus is paralysis of the gastrointestinal tract. So the patient can die of sepsis or electrolyte imbalance. Okay, that will be the last slide that you need to study for this afternoon's laboratory activity. Do you have